My name is Maya, and I'm about to tell you the story of how my 29th birthday became the day I finally understood that the people who raised me had been lying to my face for over a decade. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start with the birthday cake. It starts 3 weeks earlier, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I was helping my dad move furniture in our old family house. The house smelled like dust and old memories. Dad, Robert, though I've always called him Dad, had finally decided to downsize after my younger sister Vanessa moved out for college. Mom had been pushing for this move for months, saying the place was too big, too expensive, too much of a burden now that us kids were gone. "Maya, can you grab those boxes from the closet upstairs?" Dad called from the hallway, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. I climbed the stairs to what used to be his home office. The room was mostly cleared out, but there were still a few cardboard boxes shoved into the back of the closet. I pulled them out one by one, coughing as decades of accumulated dust swirled around me. The third box was heavier than the others. When I opened it, I found old tax documents, bank statements, and a thick manila envelope with my name written across the front in my grandmother's handwriting. My grandmother, Nana Ruth. She'd passed away when I was 16, and I still missed her every single day. She was the only person in my family who ever made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just the oldest daughter expected to set a perfect example. Inside the envelope were insurance papers, some old birthday cards, and a single sheet of paper that made my blood run cold. It was a bank statement from Western Trust Financial. Account holder, Maya Elizabeth Torres. Beneficiary. Custodian, Patricia Torres, my mother. The account had been opened when I was 8 years old with a deposit of $50,000. My grandmother's name was listed as the original depositor, with a note, for Maya's future, education, first home, or whatever dreams she chooses to chase. I sat down hard on the dusty floor, my hands shaking as I read through the statement. Monthly deposits. Small amounts, but consistent. $200 here, $500 there. By the time I turned 18, the account balance had grown to nearly $87,000. But here's the thing that made my stomach drop. The statement was dated 3 months before I started college, and the final balance shown was zero. Not 87,000. Zero. There was a handwritten note at the bottom, barely legible. Account closed per custodian request. Funds transferred. I heard my dad's footsteps on the stairs. I quickly shoved the papers back into the envelope and tucked it under my jacket. "Find anything interesting up there?" he asked, poking his head into the room. "Just old junk," I lied, forcing a smile. "I'll take these boxes down for you." But my mind was racing. I had taken out nearly $60,000 in student loans to get through college. I'd worked 2 part-time jobs while trying to maintain my grades. I'd eaten ramen for months on end, skipped social events because I couldn't afford the cover charge, and graduated with debt that would take me years to pay off. And all that time, there had been money. Money specifically set aside for me. Money that had simply vanished. I didn't confront anyone right away. Instead, I did what any suspicious person would do. I started digging. I took a sick day from my job at the marketing firm and went to Western Trust Financial. The woman at the customer service desk was polite but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but without proper authorization, I can't access account information, even for closed accounts." "It was my account," I insisted. "My name was on it. I just need to know what happened to the money." She gave me a sympathetic look. "If you were listed as the beneficiary and someone else was the custodian, they would have had legal authority over the account until you reached the age of majority. After that..." She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "After that, what?" "After that, any changes would have required your signature. Unless..." "Unless what?" "Unless the custodian had power of attorney or you signed transfer documents at some point." I left the bank with more questions than answers, but I had one advantage. I was meticulous about keeping records. I went back to my apartment and pulled out every important document I'd ever signed. College applications, loan agreements, insurance forms. Nothing about transferring funds from an account I didn't even know existed. Next, I called my aunt, my dad's sister, Linda. She and my mom had never gotten along, which meant she might actually tell me the truth. Aunt Linda, can I ask you something about Nana Ruth? Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Did she ever mention setting up an account for me? Like, for college or something? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Maya, your grandmother talked about that account all the time. She was so proud of it. She wanted to make sure you had opportunities she never had. Linda's voice softened. Why are you asking? I told her what I'd found. That goddamn woman, Linda breathed. I knew something was off. When Ruth passed and I asked Patricia about the account at the funeral, she got all defensive and said it was handled and none of my business. I should have pushed harder. Do you remember anything else? Anything about where the money might have gone? Linda was quiet for a moment. Actually, yes. About 10 years ago, right around when you were starting college, your parents bought that investment property downtown. The rental units near the university. Your mother bragged about what a smart investment it was, how they got such a good deal on the down payment. My heart sank. How much was the down payment? I think she said $75,000. Why, oh no. Yeah, I whispered. Oh no. 3 weeks later, I still hadn't confronted anyone. I'd been gathering evidence, taking photos of the documents, making copies, talking to a lawyer who specialized in financial elder abuse and trust violations. The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, had been clear. If your grandmother set up that account specifically for you and your mother diverted the funds for her own use, that's potentially actionable. But it's been a long time, and proving intent will be difficult. The statute of limitations might be an issue. So there's nothing I can do? I didn't say that. I said it will be difficult. We need more documentation. Bank records, correspondence, anything showing what your grandmother intended versus what actually happened. I was still trying to figure out my next move when my birthday arrived. Mom had insisted on dinner at Antonio's, this upscale Italian restaurant where she liked to be seen. My sister Vanessa had driven home from college, and Dad was there looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt he clearly hated. My mother, Patricia, held court at the head of the table, her perfect blonde bob not moving even when she laughed. She'd always been beautiful in that cold, calculated way, like a magazine cover you admire but never want to touch. Maya, darling, you look so thin. Are you eating enough? She said it like a compliment, but I knew better. It was an assessment, a judgment, a subtle way of saying I didn't measure up to her standards. I'm fine, Mom. Vanessa squeezed my hand under the table. She was the only one who understood what it was like to be on the receiving end of Mom's particular brand of criticism disguised as concern. We ordered food. We made small talk. Dad asked about my job, and I gave vague answers because I knew Mom would find something to criticize no matter what I said. Then the waiter brought out the cake. It was beautiful. 3 tiers, covered in fondant roses, with sparklers shooting gold sparks into the air. The entire restaurant turned to look at our table. Mom was beaming. I had it specially made. Go on, look at what it says. I leaned forward to read the inscription in flowing script across the top tier. Happy 29th, Maya. Still not married, still not successful, but at least you're still trying. The sparklers crackled. Someone at a nearby table laughed awkwardly. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Mom, Vanessa gasped. What the hell? But Patricia was already laughing. That high-pitched giggle she did when she wanted to pretend something cruel was just a joke. Oh, come on, it's funny. Maya knows I'm just teasing. We can all laugh at ourselves, can't we? Dad looked down at his plate, silent as always. And something inside me just broke. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "You stole from me," I said quietly. The laughter died. Mom's smile froze on her face. "What are you talking about?" "The account. The one Nana Ruth set up for me. $87,000 that was supposed to pay for my education. The money you transferred out right before I started college so you could buy that rental property." The color drained from my mother's face. Dad's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "Maya, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me." My voice was louder now, and other diners were staring, but I didn't care. "I found the statements. I talked to Aunt Linda. I know about the down payment and when you bought the property and how the timing lines up perfectly with when my account was emptied." "That money was family money," Mom hissed, her composure cracking. "Your grandmother would have wanted it used for the family's benefit, not just for me? Is that what you were going to say?" I grabbed my purse. "The account had my name on it, Mom. It said, 'For Maya's future.'" Those were Nana's exact words. "And you stole it." "We can talk about this at home," Dad said quietly, his first words in 10 minutes. "No, Dad. We can't. Because this isn't about talking anymore." I pulled the envelope from my purse, the one with copies of all the documents, and dropped it on the table next to the obscene birthday cake. "These are copies. My lawyer has the originals. You'll be hearing from him." Then I walked out of that restaurant with every pair of eyes burning into my back, and I didn't look back once. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. It was Mom. Then Dad. Then Vanessa, crying and confused because Mom had spent 2 hours yelling at her about betraying the family by not warning them about my accusations. I ignored the calls and focused on building my case. Mr. Harrison had been busy. He'd filed a civil lawsuit against my mother and had subpoenaed bank records from Western Trust Financial. The rental property, the one my parents had bought with what I now knew was my money, was registered in both my parents' names, which made my father equally liable. "The problem," Mr. Harrison explained during our meeting, "is that your mother was the legal custodian. She had the authority to manage the account. What we need to prove is that she violated the terms of the trust your grandmother established, and that she used the money for her own benefit rather than yours." "Can we prove that?" "We're going to try. I've requested copies of your grandmother's will, any correspondence she had with the bank, and the original trust documents. If we can show clear intent that the money was meant exclusively for your education, we have a case." 2 weeks later, we got a breakthrough. The bank records showed that my mother had been systematically withdrawing money from the account starting when I was 15. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. But in the 6 months before I started college, she'd made 3 large withdrawals totaling almost $70,000. And here's the kicker. Each withdrawal was categorized as custodian personal expense. Not beneficiary education. Not trust distribution. Personal expense. "This is good," Mr. Harrison said, but he didn't look happy. "This shows intent to use the funds for her own benefit. But your mother's lawyer is going to argue that she was within her rights as custodian and that she intended to pay it back." "Did she?" "There's no evidence of any repayment. And the property has been generating rental income for years, none of which has gone back into any account in your name." Meanwhile, my family was imploding. My mother had launched a full-scale campaign to paint me as ungrateful and vindictive. She told extended family that I was making up lies to extort money from them. She posted vague, martyred messages on Facebook about children who turn on their parents and unimaginable betrayal. My dad, to his credit, had called me once, just once, to ask if we could work this out privately. "Dad, she stole from me. From Nana's legacy to me. You know that's what happened." "I know, Maya. I know. But she's my wife. What do you want me to do? I wanted you to protect me. I wanted you to care more about what's right than about keeping the peace. But you never did. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't going to change anything. The deposition took place in a sterile conference room downtown. My mother sat across the table from me with her lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Ms. Keating who looked like she ate defendants for breakfast. I hadn't seen Mom in person since the birthday dinner. She looked smaller somehow, older, but her eyes were hard as stone. Mrs. Torres, Mr. Harrison began, can you explain why you made withdrawals from your daughter's trust account between 2012 and 2015? Objection, Ms. Keating said smoothly. Misleading. Mrs. Torres was the custodian of the account and had full legal authority to manage it as she saw fit. Let me rephrase. What were the withdrawals used for? My mother cleared her throat. Family expenses. The household was struggling financially during that period. My husband lost his job, we had medical bills, the mortgage was underwater. I did what I had to do to keep our family afloat. And did you inform Maya that you were using her funds? She was a minor. It wasn't her concern. What about after she turned 18? Mom shifted in her seat. I intended to repay it. Life just got in the way. Mrs. Torres, you purchased a rental property in 2015 for $200,000. The down payment was $75,000. Where did that money come from? Our savings. Your bank records show that your joint savings account had a balance of $8,000 1 month before the property purchase. 4 weeks later, you made a down payment of $75,000. Where did the additional funds come from? Silence. Mrs. Torres? I don't recall the exact source. We might have borrowed from family, or… Your mother-in-law had recently passed away, correct? Ruth Torres. Yes. And she had set up the trust account for Maya? Among other things, yes. So you took the money your mother-in-law had explicitly designated for your daughter's future and used it to purchase an investment property that has generated over $200,000 in rental income over the past decade. Is that accurate? My mother's face was red. I was protecting my family. We would have lost everything. Maya still got to go to college. On $60,000 of student loans that she's still paying off, with interest. While you've been collecting rental checks every month from a property purchased with her money. Objection. Ms. Keating's voice was sharp. Counselor, you're making speeches, not asking questions. But the damage was done. Even my mother's lawyer looked uncomfortable. The trial was scheduled for November, 6 months after the birthday dinner from hell. In that time, I'd learned more about my family's finances than I ever wanted to know. The rental property was just the beginning. My mother had also used funds from the account to pay off credit card debt, finance a renovation on the family house, and fund my sister's high school trip to Europe, a trip I'd been told we couldn't afford when it was my turn. Every discovery felt like a fresh betrayal. The night before the trial, Vanessa showed up at my apartment with a bottle of wine and red eyes from crying. I didn't know, she said immediately. I swear to God, Maya, I didn't know she used your money. When she paid for the Europe trip, she said it was from Dad's bonus. I never would have gone if I'd known. I pulled my sister into a hug. I know. This isn't about you. She's telling everyone you're destroying the family over money. That you've always been jealous of her success, that you're unstable. She's even saying you made up documents. Let her say whatever she wants. The truth is going to come out tomorrow. I'm testifying for you. Mr. Harrison called me last week. I pulled back, surprised. Vanessa, you don't have to do that. Mom will never forgive you. Good. Her voice was hard. Because I'll never forgive her for what she did to you. To us. She's been pitting us against each other our whole lives, making me feel guilty for every advantage I got while you struggled. I'm done. The trial started at 9 a.m. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, and less dramatic. No gasps from the gallery, no dramatic music. Just fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, and the steady drone of legal proceedings. Mr. Harrison presented our case methodically. Bank records, trust documents, testimony from the bank officer who confirmed that the account was established specifically for my benefit, testimony from Aunt Linda about what my grandmother had said she wanted for my future. Then he called Vanessa to the stand. She was nervous, her hands shaking as she swore on the Bible. But her voice was clear. Our mother always treated Maya differently. She was held to higher standards, given less credit for her achievements, and expected to sacrifice for the family in ways I never was. When I asked why Maya didn't come on the Europe trip with my class, Mom said she was too busy with college applications and that it wasn't in the budget. But now I know the truth. It was in the budget. It was in Maya's budget. Mom just decided to spend Maya's money on me instead. My mother's lawyer tried to discredit Vanessa, suggesting she was biased or had been manipulated by me. But Vanessa didn't waver. I love my mother, she said quietly. But what she did was wrong. And pretending it wasn't won't make our family better. It just means Maya suffers alone while the rest of us pretend everything is fine. Then it was my mother's turn to testify. She was composed, carefully dressed in a conservative navy suit. She spoke about financial hardship, about impossible choices, about doing what she thought was best for everyone. I never meant to hurt Maya, she said, and for a moment, I almost believed her. I truly thought I was protecting the family. I thought she would understand someday. Mrs. Torres, Mr. Harrison said during cross-examination, you said you intended to repay the funds. Can you show any evidence of attempts to do so? Any transfers back into an account in Maya's name? Any documentation showing repayment plans? No, but... In fact, over the past 10 years, you've taken family vacations to Hawaii, purchased a new car, and renovated your kitchen. Is that correct? Yes, but those were separate. While your daughter has been working 2 jobs to make loan payments on education debt that wouldn't exist if you hadn't taken her money. Correct. My mother's lawyer objected, but the point was made. The judge took 2 days to deliberate. When we returned to the courthouse for the verdict, I was numb. Part of me had already accepted that I might lose, that my mother's lawyers would find some technicality or loophole that would let her off the hook. But then the judge started speaking. This court has reviewed all evidence and testimony presented. While it is true that Mrs. Patricia Torres was the legal custodian of the account in question and had broad authority to manage it, the evidence clearly shows that the funds were designated for a specific purpose, Maya Torres's education and future opportunities, and that Mrs. Torres violated that purpose by using the money for personal investments and family expenses unrelated to the beneficiary. I grabbed Mr. Harrison's arm, afraid to hope. Furthermore, the court finds that Mrs. Torres made no reasonable efforts to repay the funds despite the rental property generating substantial income over the past decade. The court also notes that Mrs. Torres failed to disclose the existence of the account to Maya even after she reached the age of majority, which suggests intent to conceal the misappropriation. My mother was staring straight ahead, her jaw clenched. Therefore, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Maya Torres. Mrs. Patricia Torres is ordered to repay the full amount withdrawn from the trust account, plus accrued interest calculated at the average rate of return for similar educational trusts over the relevant period. The total judgment is $93,412, to be paid within 90 days or through the sale of assets if necessary. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Additionally, Mrs. Torres is ordered to pay the plaintiff's legal fees and court costs. This court understands that family disputes are painful, but trust funds established for children's education are not emergency funds for parental convenience. Mrs. Torres violated her fiduciary duty and must make restitution. The gavel came down. It was over. Winning in court didn't feel like I thought it would. There was no triumphant moment, no sense of victory. Just exhaustion and the hollow realization that I'd had to sue my own mother to get what was rightfully mine all along. My parents were forced to take out a second mortgage on the rental property to pay the judgment. My mother didn't speak to me for 3 months, and when she finally did, it was through a lawyer sending a settlement offer to reduce the payment in exchange for me signing away any future claims. I refused. My dad called me once more after the verdict. "Your mother is talking about selling the house," he said, his voice tired. "She says she can't bear to stay there anymore, knowing what it cost." "She could have avoided all of this by just telling me the truth 10 years ago," I said. "By respecting what Nana wanted for me." "I know. I should have stopped her. I should have protected you." "Yeah, Dad. You should have." We didn't speak again for 6 months. Vanessa moved in with me for a while after the trial. She'd transferred to a university closer to my city and cut off contact with our mother entirely. "She keeps texting me," Vanessa said one night, showing me her phone. "She says I betrayed the family. That I chose you over her. Like that's supposed to make me feel guilty." "You didn't choose me over her. You chose honesty over complicity." I just don't understand how she can still think she's the victim in all this. How does someone steal from their own kid and then act like they're the one who's been wronged? I didn't have an answer for that. It took me another year to fully process what had happened. I used part of the judgment money to pay off my student loans. The rest I put into savings, a savings account that only I had access to, in a bank my parents didn't know about. I started therapy. Real therapy, not just venting to friends over wine. And slowly, painfully, I began to understand that my mother's betrayal wasn't about me. It was never about me not being good enough or deserving enough. It was about her, her choices, her inability to see me as a person rather than a resource. That birthday cake, that cruel, humiliating message in front of a restaurant full of strangers, that was just the visible symbol of how she'd always seen me. As someone to criticize, to control, to take from. But I didn't have to accept that anymore. My Aunt Linda became a bigger part of my life. She'd always been there, hovering at the edges, but now she stepped in fully. She told me stories about Nana Ruth, about the woman who'd loved me enough to plan for my future even knowing she wouldn't be there to see it. "Your grandmother worked 2 jobs for 5 years to build that account," Linda told me one afternoon over coffee. "She wanted you to have choices she never had. Freedom. Independence. It broke her heart that you'd have to struggle the way she did. I wish I could thank her." "You already did, sweetheart. By fighting for what she wanted for you. By refusing to let it be taken without a fight." Slowly, I started to rebuild my sense of self-worth. Not based on my mother's approval or my family's acceptance, but on my own accomplishments, my own values, my own definition of success. I got a promotion at work. I started dating someone who actually respected me. I learned to set boundaries and stick to them, even when it was uncomfortable. And one day, about 18 months after the trial, my mother reached out again. This time it wasn't through a lawyer. It was a letter, handwritten on her expensive stationery, delivered to my apartment by courier. "Dear Maya. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I've hurt you in ways that can't be easily repaired. But I need you to understand that I never meant to destroy your trust or your future. I made choices I thought were right at the time. I told myself I was protecting the family, that I would make it right eventually. But I was wrong. I was selfish and short-sighted, and I stole from you, not just money, but opportunities and peace of mind. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to ask for it. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. If you ever decide you want to try to rebuild something between us, I'm here. But I understand if you don't. I understand if that bridge is burned beyond repair. Asterisk. Asterisk, I hope you're happy, Maya. I hope you're building the life you deserve, the life my mother wanted for you. Asterisk. Mom. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and went back to living my life. It's been 3 years since that birthday dinner now. I haven't reconciled with my mother. Maybe I will someday, or maybe I won't. I'm learning to be okay with not knowing. What I do know is this. Family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you just because they're family. Love without respect is manipulation. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who will never see your worth. That trust fund my grandmother set up wasn't just about money. It was about believing in my potential, about giving me tools to build the life I wanted. My mother didn't just steal cash, she stole that belief, that investment in my future. But here's what she couldn't steal: my resilience, my ability to fight for myself, my refusal to accept less than I deserve. I think about Nana Ruth sometimes, about what she'd say if she knew what happened. Part of me hopes she'd be proud that I fought back, that I didn't let her gift be taken without consequence. But mostly, I hope she'd be proud of who I'm becoming, someone who knows her worth, who sets boundaries, who refuses to be diminished by other people's cruelty. The birthday cake was meant to humiliate me, to remind me that in my mother's eyes, I would never be enough. But instead, it became the moment I finally saw clearly. The moment I stopped waiting for my family to value me and started valuing myself. They say blood is thicker than water. But the full quote is actually, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The bonds we choose, the family we build, the people who truly see us, those connections matter more than genetic obligation. I've built my own family now. Vanessa, Aunt Linda, close friends who've become sisters, a partner who thinks I'm exactly enough just as I am. These are the people who showed up for me, who believed me, who didn't ask me to minimize my pain for their comfort. And every month, when I make a deposit into my own savings account, the one nobody can touch, I think of Nana Ruth and the future she tried to give me. I didn't get it the way she planned. But I got it anyway. And that, in the end, is what matters most. If you've experienced family betrayal or financial exploitation, please know, you're not alone, and you deserve to be treated with respect and honesty. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes justice means standing up even when everyone tells you to sit down. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your worth. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there realize they deserve better too.